MIFF for such invitation. And as we said, that this is my first time here in Norway, but I am so familiar with the foreign policy of Norway towards the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is usually, I am also very critical to such kind of policy towards the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I would like to start from Gaza, because Gaza today is not only an obstacle to Israel. Gaza also became an obstacle to the Palestinians, and it also became an obstacle to the Egyptian government. If we will look today to inside Gaza Strip, we will find that there are 4 different players inside the Gaza Strip. The first player is the Egyptian government. The second player is the Palestinian Authority of the West Bank. The third player, of course, the Hamas. But the fourth player is Israel. Now, what are the differences between these 4 different players? The first 2 players are much more interesting in the destruction of Gaza rather than in the reconstruction of Gaza, which is Egypt and the Palestinian Authority of the West Bank. They are very much interesting in destroying the Gaza Strip. Why? The Egyptian government believes that the Hamas is a terrorist organization. The Egyptian government believes that while Egypt imposing more and more pressure on Gaza, that's probably the only way how to get rid from the Hamas organization. What is the interest of the Palestinian Authority of the West Bank? The interest of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, that while Egypt imposing more and more pressure on Gaza, that's probably will pave the way to the Palestinian Authority to return back to Gaza and to recontrol Gaza like they used to do till 2007. Now, if we will take Israel and Hamas, I think that both Israel and Hamas are very interesting in the reconstruction of Gaza Strip. So if Hamas and Israel agreed already on the reconstruction of Gaza, where is the conflict here between Hamas and Israel? The conflict is that Hamas said that the priority of the reconstruction of Gaza should have to go to our own tunnels and to our own military capability. While Israel said, no way. The priority for the reconstruction in Gaza should have to go to the houses and to the other civil facilities which has been destroyed during the summer war in 2014. And this is unfortunately how the whole process of the reconstruction of Gaza almost delayed. Friends, if you will look to the Rafah passage today, which is dividing Gaza from the West Bank, from Egypt. During the last year, 2016, the Rafah passage was open only for 20 days during all of the year. How many Palestinians succeed to cross from Gaza to Egypt? Only 20,000 Palestinians. If we will move to 2011, how many Palestinians succeed to cross the Rafah passage from Gaza to Egypt? 460,000. Which means the number almost dropped from 500,000 to 20,000 only. And that's showing you the real pressure that Egypt is imposing these days on the Gaza Strip. If you will come today to any ordinary Palestinian in Gaza and asking him, which country really imposing the blockade on the Gaza Strip? Most of the people will say Egypt, not Israel. Because Israel still the only one who is providing the food, the medicines, the electricity, and the water after the rockets that they are receiving from the Hamas. This is the fact on the ground. No one Arab country today trying to provide any kind of help to the Gaza Strip, including the Palestinian Authority of the West Bank. This is the real situation right now in Gaza. I have a lot of friends in Gaza. I am talking with them from time to time. People recently told me that, Bassem, listen, if Israel tomorrow morning will open one of its passages only for 2 hours, 30% of the youths of Gaza will escape to another country. I am quite sure that this is the situation. And I am sure that people who succeed to leave Gaza these days through the Rafah passage, they will never come back to Gaza again. But people waiting for the opportunity. In the meantime, people couldn't speak out about their current situation under the Hamas. People couldn't speak out that we are receiving only 4 hours electricity during the 24 hours. So this is the real situation in Gaza. Now, if we will move to the West Bank a little bit, I am a person who believes that if Mr. Netanyahu tomorrow will meet with President Abbas, I think that the first question that Netanyahu is going to ask Abbas, whom you are representing, Mr. President? West Bank, Gaza Strip, or Palestinians diaspora? In my opinion, Abbas only representing his 2 sons and his wife. I think that the majority of the Palestinians these days almost lost the trust in their own leadership. If you will come today to any ordinary Palestinian and asking him, what are the most 3 priorities that you are seeking? He will say a job to survive, to secure the education system and the health system for my children. Nobody is talking about settlements. Nobody is talking about the wall. Nobody even talking about the foundation of the Palestinian state. Which means, in my opinion, that the majority of the Palestinians are people who are seeking dignity rather than identity. And I used to teach my colleague Palestinians all the time in the West Bank that homeland is not the place where you're born. Homeland is the place where you can find dignity, justice, and freedoms. Any country around the world will give me these 3 important issues, I have no problem to be considered as their own citizen. And when we are talking about dignity, I think the meaning of dignity is how to improve the economic situation of the Palestinians. Since the Oslo Agreement in 93 until today, almost 24 years passed. Hundreds of billions of dollars the international community almost spent on the Oslo and the actors of Oslo. But those hundreds of billions of dollars never been able to create 1 job in the West Bank or 1 job in the Gaza Strip. And the big question is, where is the money? I think that the Palestinians, probably the most people who are really very aware about the corruption of their own leadership. This is the talk on the streets among the Palestinians, how the Palestinian Authority became so corrupt, and how the international community keeping a blind eyes on the corruption of the Palestinian Authority. Friends, if we will look to the Middle East map today and how the Islamic terror is increasing, we will find that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is probably the most safe place in the Middle East right now. As an Arab, as a Muslim, I don't want to be in Syria. I don't want to be in Libya. I don't want to be in Iraq. I don't want to be in Yemen. It is much safer for myself and for my children to continue living under the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Arabs today, in my opinion, are not exist. The Arabs today almost stuck in their own mud. Look what's going on in Syria. Look what's going on in Yemen. How the Saudis are killing hundreds of people every day in Yemen, and no word in the media about what's going on in Yemen. Massacres the Saudis are committing against the civilian people in Yemen. Muslims are killing Muslims, Shia and Sunni. This is the situation of the Arabs today. And I don't think that the Arabs today giving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict any kind of priority. It is not the priority anymore. It used to be the priority. But today it is not. And that's making the Palestinian Authority very upset on the Arab countries and on the international countries, because the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not the priority of the agenda of the international community. The priority today of the international community is how to fight the Islamic terror and how to put an end for ISIS. ISIS is the priority. And the Palestinian Authority, while they are very upset on that, I think that the Palestinian Authority try to escalate the violence against Israel in terms to bring the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to the priority of the international community. And this is unfortunately what we saw since October 2015, the so-called knife intifada. When any stabber Palestinians killed by the Israelis, the Palestinian president immediately inviting his family for a meeting in Ramallah. And the President Abbas is the one who declared on the killed person, the stabber, as a martyr, and giving his family between $3,000 to $4,000 as a present. I think that that's the real incitement against Israel. And no one of the international community right now spoke one word from where Abbas giving that money to these killers. This is one of the major problems today. That the international community these days became a part of the conflict rather than a part of the solution. And for how long we can keep such kind of attitude? After each American elections and after each new American administration, we used to have a little bit of hope that probably this administration is really going to solve the problem. No. No one around the world will be able to solve the conflict except the Israelis and the Palestinians only. No Trump, not the King of Norway, not the new president of France. No one of them. This is what the international community should have to start understanding. We remember during January this year, the fake peace conference in Paris, while 27 countries attended the conference to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict with the absence of the Israelis and the Palestinians. How it could be? Which stupid person arranged such kind of meeting? With the absence of the Israelis and the Palestinians, you want to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Tell me how. This is one of the problems. The external involvement in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the major problems of the conflict. Now we have President Trump. I remember last year, in March last year, there was a big conference conducted by AIPAC in Washington, D.C. And Mr. Trump arrived and he gave a talk. Among the others, Trump said, I am the one who can solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But when people start laughing, then he continues saying, as a businessman, not as a politician. Sometimes I used to agree that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a business conflict. It is a business conflict. And that's exactly what the Palestinian Authority trying to keep the current situation as a status quo. Because at the end of the month, we are receiving $100 million from the international community for salaries. For salaries. You know, the Palestinian Authority is a big organization. This is not authority, not a state, not anything. It's a big organization with a monthly budget of $100 million. So why Abbas should have to make a state? No need for state. If we will make a state, we will lose $100 million a month. And that's exactly what's happened 4 years ago. Everybody remember when Salam Fayyad used to be the Palestinian Prime Minister. Salam Fayyad was a Prime Minister for 6 years, since the Hamas took over Gaza in 2007 until 2013. Salam Fayyad, in my opinion, is the only Palestinian leader who really try to build the infrastructure of the state. But after 6 years, Abbas came to Fayyad by saying, what you are doing? Who told you that we want to build a state? Go home. And he kicked him from his position. Because Salam Fayyad was really very interesting to build the state. And that's leading me sometimes to some European leaders. When they want to put pressure on Israel to resume the peace negotiations, they are saying, if Israel is not resuming the peace talks, we are going to recognize the Palestinian state. Which state you are going to recognize? A state which is in a lack of infrastructure of state. State which is in a lack of institutions of state. State which is in a lack of economic sources of state. A state where is 54% of its populations are living in refugee camps. This is not the state that I am looking for. This is not the state that I am dreaming for. I think that state should have to be built before it's recognized. And that's the major problem of Europe, in my opinion, these days. That they want to recognize an unfounded state just because we want to put pressure on Israel. But that will never benefit the Palestinians. That will never benefit the Palestinians. So I think that Europe, mainly Europe, should have to make a kind of a peace conference for Europe, not for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Europe should have to agree on a much more balanced foreign policy to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Each European country today has its own politics towards the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Europe is not united on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I think that Europe should have, first of all, to put the Palestinian Authority under accountability. This is the first thing that Europe should have to do it today before tomorrow. To put the Palestinian Authority under accountability and to start teaching the Palestinian Authority what does it mean, transparency. I think that Europe, by keeping a blind eyes on the Palestinian Authority corruption, that means that Europe is supporting the Palestinian Authority to continue keeping the Palestinians as hostages under the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And the question is, who will be able to change the foreign policy of Europe? Who can? I don't believe in politicians, by the way, anymore. All politicians around the world, I don't believe in them. And I think that the politicians around the world almost failed to find any solution between the Israelis and the Palestinians. They failed. We have a lot of agreements, a lot of initiatives, a lot of conferences, a lot of meetings, a lot of travel. And the conflict is getting worse and worse. Because looks like to me that this is exactly what the Palestinian Authority really wants. Some people sometimes said, listen, what about Israel? Listen, Israel almost criticized everywhere. But the Palestinian Authority never ever been criticized. And this is my main job, is to bring the facts on the ground and to show the fact of the Palestinian Authority. Who is the Palestinian Authority? You know, sometimes I am looking to Gaza. The situation in Gaza used to be much better before the Israeli disengagement. No doubt about it. The people said it in Gaza. The people told me that our situation before the Israeli disengagement used to be much better. And I think that we almost failed to rule Gaza. I remember when Ariel Sharon declared on his plan to disengage from Gaza, every Palestinian leader start running from one TV channel to another TV channel by saying, if Israel will disengage from Gaza, we are going to make from Gaza Singapore. I never been in Singapore, but I'm wondering if the situation in Singapore today, it is like Gaza. So we failed to rule Gaza. I remember when the Hamas leaders said that if Israel will disengage from Gaza, we, the Hamas, going to move our resistance from Gaza to the West Bank. That's the problem. We failed to rule Gaza. So sometimes people coming and saying, Israel should have to withdraw from the West Bank. Come on. If Israel will withdraw tomorrow from the West Bank even will be much worse than Gaza. And that will be a big loss to the Palestinians themselves. Unfortunately, we the Palestinians are not ripe enough for state right now. We are not. So leave the so-called two-state solution, put it aside. The question is how we can pave the way towards peace. We have so many obstacles on the way to peace. And those obstacles should have to be solved and taken away. And to pave the way for peace, you need an economic prosperity. And this is what I am trying to spread out during my travels and my lectures around the world, how we can increase the economy of the Palestinians. Because I am a person who believes that if we will succeed to increase the economy of the Palestinians, that's probably will decrease the Palestinian violence. I think that it is a very important message, and I think that the Israeli government is very aware today about the Palestinian economy. And this is how the Israeli government, every month, trying to give more and more working permits to the Palestinians. Now, while we said we want more and more economy, the BDS coming, calling for boycotting Israel. But for calling boycotting Israel, you also harassing my own income. Everybody knows that the major income of the Palestinians these days is the work in Israel. This is the 70% of our income. 70% is by working in Israel. If you will come today and asking a Palestinian worker, where you prefer to work, under Israel or under the Palestinian Authority, 100% will say under Israel. Why? Because the average monthly salary under Israel is 5 times more than it is under the Palestinian Authority. And that's exactly the dignity that we are talking about. There is a huge difference between a salary of $1,500 to a salary of $400. Big difference. This is the dignity that we are calling for. I don't think, first of all, that the BDS has any effect on Israel right now. At all not. Zero effect. If we will take, as an example, the Soda Stream. Who paid the high price for moving the Soda Stream from the West Bank to the south of Israel? The Palestinian workers. 1,500 Palestinian workers lost their jobs, and their children lost their medical insurances. Now, the Soda Stream today, the yearly income of the Soda Stream after they moved from the West Bank to the south of Israel, 3 times more than it used to be in the West Bank. So they didn't lose any money. They make more money now. Soda Stream is making more money now. So what the BDS want? Just recently, 3 months ago, Jordan signed an agreement with Israel that Israel is going to export the natural gas for Jordan for 10 years in $15 billion. Where is the BDS? This is the real money. Where is the BDS? I didn't hear one word from the BDS. Probably the BDS don't know about that deal. And the BDS, by the way, I must have to tell you that there is no one member of the BDS, neither in the West Bank nor in the Gaza Strip. Because the BDS knows if they will enter one of the refugee camps tomorrow and calling people to boycott Israel, people are going to throw shoes on them. Because what is the alternative? I want to survive. I want to guarantee the future of my children. You didn't give me any kind of solution. The 1,500 Palestinian workers who has been kicked out from the Soda Stream, they never get 1 penny from the BDS. And the Palestinians, by the way, are not really so aware about the BDS. I believe 95% of the Palestinians has no idea what is the meaning of the BDS. Because it is much more comfortable for the BDS to act in Europe and in the United States. Because there they can get money and power, but not in the West Bank or in Gaza. So this is another organization, another horrible organization, beside the other horrible organizations surrounding us, who is trying to add fuel, oil to the flame. This is the BDS. The BDS want to destroy Israel. I don't have time to wait till the BDS will trash Israel. I don't have time to wait. This is not a solution. And I think that this is one of the most important things that the parliament in Norway should have to raise the issue of the BDS. I must have to tell you that the parliament in Switzerland 2 months ago decided, the parliament in Switzerland decided that it's prohibited to give any kind of financial support to the BDS. And they put the BDS in their real place. Where is the real place of the BDS? Among the anti-Semite people. That's exactly what the Norwegians parliament should have. Because if you're really seeking peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis, you should have to prohibit any activities for the BDS on your own homeland. But unfortunately, politics is politics. And it's very difficult sometimes to put an end for such kind of a biased politics. I think that Europe should have to wake up Now Europe, these days Europe is under a real Muslim radical attacks. And Europe should have to wake up. Otherwise, Europe will be eaten from within. From within. Europe should have to give more attention to their internal situation rather than to give attention to a so far away thing called the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Start to look into yourself and to impose more and more security for your own. I think that the Palestinians today much more safer than the French people or the English people. Because we well protected by the Israelis. Well protected by the Israelis. It is a very sad picture. But unfortunately, these are the facts on the ground. I think that we, the Palestinians, much more aware about any other nation in the world, how the conflict should have to be solved. But in the meantime, we, the Palestinians, has no trust in our own leadership that this leadership is going to solve the conflict. So we have to wait. And it will take time. Now, most of the times I used to say to my Palestinian colleagues that one of the major problems of the Palestinians is a lack of a leadership. We don't have a leadership. If you will ask me, who is the alternative to Abbas? I will tell you Abbas. Because there is no other leader. No other leader. And Abbas is not interesting at all to see any young Palestinian leadership. He's not interesting. He said to everybody, wait until I will pass away. And then you can do whatever you want. But no one asked him when you are going to pass away. That's the problem. That's the problem. You know, there was a conference 1 month ago. There was a conference in Ramallah. And the title of the conference was, What After Abbas? You couldn't believe all of the people in the conference has been arrested by Abbas. What does it mean, what after Abbas? Wait until I will go. I am still here. These people has been arrested for a few days and they never released until they sign a kind of a commitment that they will never participate again in such kind of conferences. This is Abbas. This is the democracy. Abbas democracy, you can call it. So we have to wait. We have no other choice. I used to say that probably we, the Palestinians, need to wait for 1 or 2 generations to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It will take a time. I think that the second Intifada almost created a very deep, big gap of hatred. That's the problem. With hatred, you couldn't bring peace. First, you have to convert the hate to love. Then, to talk about peace. And who can convert hate to love? Who can? Who can? I think, as I said, that there are so many obstacles on the way to peace. Let us focus on the obstacles. Let us try to move these obstacles. Let us try to solve some of these obstacles in terms to pave the way towards peace. But to stand up tomorrow morning and to say 2-state solution is the solution, it is not true. It is not true. It is not true. I think that the solution should have to be completely different than everybody is talking about. Let us work more and more on economy. Economy, I'm a person who believes that economy is one of the most important issues that probably will lead to peace in the future. But without a strong economy to the Palestinians and the Israelis, I don't believe that any opportunity of peace will be appropriate. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Vi har tid til ett eller to spørsmål. Hvis det noen som... Han venn med meg på Facebook, så han sitter nok og følger med. He is asking if the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Norway will be allowed to listen to this, and I said we are friends on Facebook, so he's probably listening on the live streaming. At least we have 40 or 50 people watching all the time.
Let's hope. Let's hope. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Trude Rebecca Levara. I actually studied conflict resolution and mediation at Tel Aviv University for a master's.
Yes.
So, of course, I've heard many different sides of the conflict, and I really thought that putting economy and dignity together, like the solution you were suggesting today, is really a very workable perspective. But how big part of the Palestinian constituency do you think have this kind of a view on the conflict or would support your view?
Yes, yes. Thank you. I think that the major problem of the Palestinians that they are not allowed to speak out. So sometimes people ask me, whom you are representing? And I used to say, I am representing the deaf people, people who couldn't speak. This is the voice that I am trying to bring. You know, I'm traveling a lot. I am every day in the West Bank. I have a lot of friends. I'm entering to all the refugee camps over there. I think that there are Palestinians who are even more critical than I am towards their own situation. More critical. But they are not allowed to speak out. I know how many people came to me and said, Bassem, take me to America and I will show you what I am going to say there. Because he felt in America he will be completely protected. But not in Bethlehem, not in Ramallah. I think that the majority knows exactly that with violence, we will never achieve anything. I think that the second intifada was the major tragedy in the history of the Palestinians. Because what we succeed to build after Oslo almost destroyed with the second intifada. This is one of the problems. Now the second problem is that we still have such kind of fundamentalist, extremist, terrorists who don't want the conflict to be solved. And the major problem that these extremists who don't want the conflict to be solved are supported by countries from outside. Look to Qatar recently. Qatar, I used to say 10 years ago that Qatar is an emirate of terror. Qatar is an emirate of terror. But looks like that the world discovered that after 10 years. And this is how today, every day we are listening in the news that a new country boycotting Qatar. Because Qatar is terrorizing the world, in my opinion. And this is the policy of Iran, of course, by supporting the Hezbollah in the north of Israel and the Hamas in the south of Israel. In terms how to continue disturbing the Israeli internal security. They are paying money for that. How we can stop the Hamas? How we can stop the Hezbollah? Only if we will cut the financial support. If you will cut the financial support, then these terrorists will disappear tomorrow morning. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.